Okay, I'm trying again. Pin comment. Okay. Reimagine. Okay, I'm trying to get Reimagine LA to join, but I can't get them. 1 second. Unable to join. Okay. Hi there.
Hi,
Sorry.
Bonnie.
How are
No
you?
worries. Good.
They
How
were
are you
saying that as well.
doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm very good.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
Yeah, of course. I really wanted to share with everyone what Measure J was and what you're doing with Reimagine LA and how people can support Measure J in these upcoming days. So just maybe we could start with like what it even is Measure J.
Sure. Sounds great. My name is Eunices Hernandez. I was born and raised in LA. I'm a community advocate and organizer, and I've been doing work around trying to dismantle the criminal justice system. And now we're here to talk about Measure J. And so Measure J is a local LA County initiative that's on the ballot for voting in November, already in November, so on Tuesday, and even currently now. But what it does is that it moves 10% of funds that are located in an account in LA County where all our locally generated tax dollars go to. So, if you own property in LA County, you pay property taxes. When you go to the store, you pay taxes. Those locally generated tax dollars in LA County is about $8.8 billion. So we're just saying, hey, LA County, let's have our budget match our priorities. Let's move 10% of those tax dollars that people are already paying and put them into community investments such as youth jobs, small business support, and also alternatives to incarceration like pretrial community-based services. In LA County, we have the largest jail population in the entire country. We also have the largest pretrial population in the country. We're over 7,000 people are in our LA County jail system simply because of the way the pretrial system exists, meaning they haven't been convicted, but they can't pay to get out, or they've ever been mandated to jail. And so we were saying, instead of that, let's fund community-based pretrial services. So that's what it would do. It would move 10% of those locally generated tax dollars to community investment, alternatives to incarceration. There's a couple caveats. One is that it lasts forever. It changes the Constitution. It outlives this political moment. And two is that none of the money moved can go to or go through the traditional system of injustice, right? So the sheriffs can't touch this, the judges can't touch this, prosecutors can't touch this. And we did this intentionally because we've seen millions of dollars come from the state and also other reforms at the proposition level go to, the DA's office or the prosecutors to offer community-based services when they should instead be going to community-based services and organizations to provide that. So sorry for being long-winded, but that's what Measure J does in a big nutshell.
Yeah, it's kind of complicated because it's obviously so many different angles. But what's important is that the funds and money are there. They're just obviously disproportionately spent on the prosecution and the punishment of things rather than the healthcare and the community services that would have meant that those situations would maybe less come about. And why is this really important now, I guess, particularly to people's lives and to LA County, but also hopefully it ripples out further than LA County?
Yes, it's important because for the first time, we have an opportunity to fund what I'm talking about around, youth-based services, small business support in a time of pandemic where so many have had to close or are struggling, where thousands of families are lining up for food banks because they don't have a sustainable job through this pandemic and even prior to that. And so Measure J is so critical because for the first time, we'll have a bucket of about 500 million up to $1 billion that we could invest in these things. That doesn't seem like a lot of money in the grand scheme of things, but never before has there been an investment like this. And it's an investment that's forever, right? So in the first 3 years, it has to reach the 10%. but the 10% is not the ceiling, it's the floor. So when we're in better fiscal standings, we can even say, can we push for 15% of those tax dollars to go to these things? And what we know is, sometimes folks will say, well, we don't know if diversion or reentry works. We don't know if these things are keeping our community safe. But in LA County, we've done a lot of work, and the county has done a lot of work to develop those programs. So they have evidence of people who have the most serious mental health needs and the most needs having much more success at much cheaper costs when they're based in their communities. So we have the evidence, we have the plan, we just need the dollars. Measure J gives us those dollars to move a lot of things that we've been working on in LA County over the finish line. We are in conversations about closing down the oldest jail in LA County, Men's Central Jail. It's a dungeon. And if we could close that down, that means a lot. That means thousands of people could be, better treated in their communities, and there would be resources. It costs $150 million to run Men's Central Jail for 1 year. And that's just talking about salaries and benefits. We're not even talking about the cost to rebuild the infrastructure or anything like that. So it's a lot, but it's transformative. It's forever. And it means investing in the communities that we've least invested in, that are also dying at disproportionate rates of COVID-19, and that we're also over criminalizing and are making up most of the folks who are in our county jails.
Yeah, and reinvesting that in care, which is obviously a forever system that needs to be sort of put back at the forefront of everything. Yes. Obviously we've had so much to do with physical health this year, but the mental health of that and the long-termness of that, I guess, as well, a big thing for people listening. What could we be doing now to support Measure J in the next literally few days?
Yeah, so I have colleagues that are counting down the hours, so I'm afraid to even think about the hours, but I'm already losing sleep. Mm-hmm. And what people could do, though, to really support us and making sure that we punch it all the way through as hard as possible is to phone bank. We have phone banks going on every single day, so that means 2 more days of phone banks. If you could post about Measure J. In LA County, there are still 4 million ballots that are outstanding. That means that they're sitting on people's dressers, that they're sitting on people's refrigerators, or amongst all the, propaganda that they've gotten. And so if you haven't voted, go vote now. Imagine if 4 million ballots are still outstanding, what it's going to look like. Lines, the length of the lines on November 3rd. There are currently, right now today, over 650 voting centers that are open. You can look up the nearest one. You can find out how long the wait is, but just don't wait till November 3rd. Vote today, and please phone bank and share. We don't have a year, behind us on this measure. We got this measure done in August because it was the right thing to do and because we had the opportunity. But that also meant that we had to educate, 1.5 million voters on this as soon as possible. So anything y'all could do, please share, phone bank. This is the moment. We're not, my colleague, my other co-chair, Isaac Bryan, he said something that was really profound that changed the way I viewed things, because I used to say, look, we're not ever going to have another political moment like this where you have a pandemic layered with what feels like weekly videos of police state-sanctioned violence, what also looks like people lining up for food banks and these things. And he told me, he's like, I hope we're never again in this political moment. And I was like, hell, you're right. I don't know. It just, the way he said it, really blew my mind, because yes, we're an opportunity where we're having a lot of success in policy, but that's coming at the cost of people dying. That's coming at the cost of people being hungry and losing their housing. And we don't ever want to be like that. Measure J helps us move dollars so we don't end up in places like this again. It invests in the infrastructure of health access. It invests in young people and small businesses. So it now more than ever is something like Measure J critical for us.
Definitely. I think supporting policy that actually works. I think there's so much that could be done with, nonprofits, organizations, people's compassion towards the subject. But I think until very serious, solidified policy and measures are put in place, there isn't enough protection until that happens. And just the reality of how much financing is needed to be there. But I think what's important is it just needs redistributing and the priorities shifted and changed. I'd also love just quickly to maybe hear about one's example of a community sort of service that this kind of funding would support, sort of as the alternative to what we actually want to be supporting and doing.
Yes, that's a great question. And so I'll give you a couple, a good example. I have loved ones who have mental health needs and have substance use needs and co-occurring. So they have both. And I have friends who have loved ones who have had to call law enforcement, or not law enforcement. They call 911 because their loved one is having a mental health crisis. most often than not, you're going to get a police officer that shows up. We've seen in LA County how that's led to the death of a significant number of people. Most recently, the family of Eric Briseño, Eric Briseño was murdered when his family called 911 for help, for mental health crisis. And so when we mean what are the things that Measure J would fund, alternatives to incarceration, public safety, what that means for us is life-affirming responses. And so when we think about examples of what that looks like, is like when you call 911, if your loved one is having a mental health crisis, is that you can have the opportunity to have a doctor or a nurse or someone that's dedicated their life and education to learn how to heal and deal with these type of crises, respond to your house in an appropriate amount of time, as fast as you need them. Right now, if you call a line for mental health support, like the opposite of 911, like a different line, it could take up to 5 to 7 hours for a doctor to show up. And so Measure J would make sure that we could expand what we call psychiatric mobile response teams, where doctors and nurses and healthcare clinicians can respond to crisis when people who are having a mental health crisis, maybe even responding in a scary and violent way, because oftentimes those are characteristics of the mental health need. And so that's just one example. And then the just last one, I would say, around housing in LA County. I'm not sure if you've seen how our homelessness crisis has risen up. Well, Measure J would fund the actual building of affordable housing, which is not happening at the rate we need it to. And that's also something that, we definitely depend on to help heal people, is to house them first.
Yeah. Really important things that need supporting with Measure J. So thank you so much for educating me, and hopefully everyone listening. And I'll definitely leave the information to find out more after this, so people can read up and vote and get educated.
Yes. Bonnie, thank you so much for spending your afternoon, having this conversation with me and letting folks know and using your base to really educate people. I mean, I cannot be more appreciative and grateful for your time. Thank you so much. It's invaluable.
Thank you. Yeah, and good luck with the next few days. Yeah.
Thank you. Vote yes on Measure J. Donate and phone bank.
Thank you, Mrs. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.